Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, how wonderful to see you. Lots of hugs. You came in out of the rain. You will encounter the rain again. First, I'd like to thank the owners of this establishment, Chandra Malik and Ivan Balachandran, the owners of Sweet, for enabling us to hold this installment of the Morningside Poetry Series. My gratitude also goes to my two stalwart Morningside Poetry Series partners, John Foy and Bruce Stern. Okay, today I am really thrilled to introduce you to two master poets, Norman Finkelstein and Henry Weinfeld. Two poets who, in the course of their long lifetimes in poetry, have each created entire unique universes of art and thought and imagination. The three of us have been dear friends for about half a century. Yes, that's right, 50 years. We started at 3. For a total of 150 years of friendship in poetry. So you could say that we're venerable, though not necessarily formative. Following my brief introductions, Norman and Henry will each read for 20 to 25 minutes. And after Norman reads from his book, Further Adventures, Norman will read first, we'll take a 5-minute break, during which you can belly up to the bar and refresh your drinks and or buy books, which the poets will be pleased to sign. There are a few copies here, but I recommend them highly to you, as you will hear. Norman Finkelstein will read first. And before he does, I advise you all to buckle up. Your next stop will be a 6th dimension, not of sight or sound, or of mind, but of poetry. And yes, it is as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is not the Twilight Zone, however, but a stranger and richer place governed by the impersonal board of a shadowy institution called the Immanent Foundation, a dynamic narrative that moves brightly among various modes and moods and places, from science fiction to science to alchemy to comic books, from wit to astral wonder, from nonsense to high lyricism. And the entire work is imbued with an eerie music and a spellbinding atmosphere of magic. It is my great joy to introduce my dear friend, Norman Finkelstein.
Thank you, David. Thank you, John. Thank you, Linda. Thanks to Sweet. The last time I read here was in 2016. Trump had just been elected, and I was trying to spread a little joy. It was also a reading that celebrated my selected poems, The Ratio of Reason to Magic. So I like this place a lot. And I really appreciate you coming out in the flood. The Archmage of Nonsense is at work in his study, shaping an ego out of old books of poems, bits of gossip found on the internet, and vague memories that were once his own. The ego is dispersed across page after page, decanted stuff from alembics and test tubes, and vacuum chambers retrieved from space stations long abandoned, orbiting the moon. Like a comic book born of ennui and sorrow, pain and irony and impossible magic, the ego and its dream work are laid out in poems, panel next to panel, demanding interpretation. panel next to panel in their inane contiguity, defying continuity, yet insisting upon narration, the ego in pieces, like Adam Kadmon, and the laughter of the archmage echoing through space. David mentioned my Schlemiel protagonist, Pascal Wanderlust, and what I'm going to do for the rest of the reading is I'm going to read the first poem in which Pascal comes into being, and that was in the previous book called In a Broken Star. And only later did I realize that I wanted to write more about Pascal and complete a kind of narrative arc that began with From the Files of the England Foundation. I'm not going to belabor the details of this weird story because it loops through all sorts of lyrical meditations, and if I need to fill in, I can fill in. But this is where I first encountered Pascal. Pascal Wanderlust, flowered docks and mist-gray cloak, follows the ley lines leading down the lane. The last patches of snow are melting, and Pascal sidesteps puddles on the way to palaces lately dreamed. Breezes promise music, scented sensuous turnings of air and vapor, rustling sounds. Pascal pulls back a hood grown moist in greening weather. The shining land lying just ahead, mirage at mountainous horizon. What does Pascal know of destinations? Pascal considers the wanderer's destiny, the homeless, the uprooted, the exiled, those forced out upon the roads, lost, cursed, unrecoverable, and uncountable company. What of the hidden sinner, the hidden saint? Pascal recalls a mythy moment in a mythy mind, recalls a fall, recalls taking on a wanderer's garb, recalls regarding a wanderer's fate as one that may as well be accepted, recalls the road and the blessing of the road, recalls willing exile among all the broken and unwilling. Behind the North Star, Pascal sees great shapes moving in the polar night. These are signs. These are airy nothings. These are clusters of cubes and planes, the unknown arcana of upper air and cryptical sky. These quotations, thinks Pascal, ought to be taken seriously. Illusion and immediacy, forever in conflict, cancel each other out. Only the tone remains, only the vaporous cadence, perceptible yet mysterious, leading to completion of the task. Completion? Behind the North Star, Pascal stares into the void and does not blink. Wanderlust thinks of Eros, conspicuous and noisy enough, of their long friendship on separate paths. At the crossroads one must worship the god. Fell down on my knees, the singer sang. What singer? What god? Eros, thinks Wanderlust, considers himself a god, sidesteps his fate, never finds himself at any crossroad. Wanderlust, led by Wanderlust, recalibrates constantly, knowing doubt to be the one assurance. Plucky Pascal, restless, rests assured, remembers the quiet of that room, remembers an inevitable departure. Pascal meditates upon ruins, visits battleground memorials, heroes' graves. Pascal is unimpressed. Verdigris plaques mark historical events. Pascal prefers the unrecognized, the clandestine, the encrypted. The barrier thins out, the liminal space expands. A free agent, Wanderlust moves in and out, before and after, puts on a suit, puts on a dress, changes hairstyle in accordance with the times. This happened, and then this. Don't you believe it, thinks Pascal. Such skepticism is foundational. I used to work there, then I was laid off. Don't you believe that either? Pascal looks on as they emerge from the sea, perhaps on assignment, perhaps on vacation, notes what is certainly a return of the repressed. Wanderlust on the case. The uncle shot himself, and the grandmother leapt from the pier to be welcomed far below. Webbing between stubby digits, wreathed with seaweed red and brown. Shameless Pascal at the keyhole snaps shots of college boys with voluptuous fishwives. Someone at Miskatonic will pay handsomely for these. Monstrosity, hybridity, alchemy. Figures lurk in the shadows. Pascal catches a bus out of town. If I am not for myself, reads Pascal, what can't go on? Something is alive in the room. Something is there that should not be there. Studying Avot at midnight may not have been a good idea. A sip of wine, steady now. Pascal has heard of these old ghosts, these antic moralists in gray and white. You are alone here. What are you? Poor Pascal has never had an answer. Unworthy wanderlust, unworthy of a name, unable to remain alone, unable to be a self, unable to go forth and be for others. Haunted Pascal at midnight, waiting, watching for the dawn. And if not now, when? Pascal Wanderlust to the Dark Tower came. And never mind the details of the quest. Here it is, thinks Pascal. A great black bird sails overhead. Neither knight nor child, but a child of night. Pascal, in the midst of dust and thorns, remembers the fragrance of magnolia at warm spring sunsets. A sheet of flame surrounds the tower, faces peer and bodies writhe. But Pascal has no peer. No one does. Each one of us wanders toward the tower. Each tower has a door that may or may not open. Each member of the band learns this, and hence becomes a member of the band. Wanderlust turns toward home. Wanderlust in the room alone, writing parables. Wanderlust a parable, writing to the end. One wins or loses, writes Pascal, and as if under a spell understands the wager need not be placed at all. The infinite spaces do not frighten me. I want to show you a new abyss. Put on your boots and descend with me into a place that is neither dark nor light. Are you at home in this echoing immensity? Are you secure in what we call your soul? I call to you, soul, or else I call to nothing at all. I am in a room alone, and it is toward you that I wander. So that was the beginning. And now I'm just going to throw you in medias res into one more section. How are we doing on time? Are we good? All right. I'm gonna read you a section from Further Adventures where Pascal is a young adult discovering the self. Includes some erotic adventures. I've got you ready. Behind every poem is a story, and behind every story is a poem. Perhaps it's as simple as that. Perhaps our fascination with esoteric meaning, the game we play with hidden truths, defends us from a hermeneutic emptiness, which in the end we cannot deny. And yet, we would be naked without our hermetic guides. What is Pascal Wanderlust without that cloak and hood, those flowered docks. The young Pascal collects exotic tchotchkes, talismanic bric-a-brac, hangs velvet drapes and tapestries to hide an ordinary view. Waiting for a client, waiting for a summons, Wanderlust finds the thaumaturgy, to say nothing of philosophy, only goes so far when studied in a single room. Pascal's double nature, despite that dedication to thrice great Hermes, leads to resistances one needn't call on Sprechenbaum to explain. Dr. Freud or Dr. Strange? If you hope to save a soul in danger, you must confront the demons that you share. Pascal's demons wait around every corner, behind every statuette, in every fold of those drapes, in every fold of that cloak. But demons and angels are often mistaken for one another. Pascal recalls Jacob's angel, longs to be left alone and wrestle with one till daybreak. Wanderlust's double nature calls to an other, an it beyond he and she, that is itself doubled, and in its doubled otherness impossible to call friend or foe. Will Pascal learn to tell them apart? Perhaps our hero's power lies in that, among other inabilities. Too much love? Too great a fear of conflict? Yet when power calls, contend with me, Wanderlust obeys, wrestling till daybreak. Thinking back on that 1 year of high school, Sprechenbaum's idea, it will do you good. Pascal recalls the ordinary life that he was a boy then, more or less, was meant to understand. A quiet A student none of the tough guys messed with, once word of his black belt in Taekwondo got out, Peter Lustig, aka Pete, amiable, a serious reader, had only one close friend, Robert, a rich kid from Ohio, thrown out of 3 private schools, liked slumming among the soon-to-be mechanics, waitresses, and clerks. Bob and Pete read Blake, Rimbaud, and Wilde. Bob was going on to Oberlin. God knows where Pete was going. Which is why they fought. Bob loved Pete, called him Sonnet 20. Why are you so vague about your college plans? Is that guy in the suit really your uncle? I know it was you I saw that night in the dress. I know I saw you talking to a cat. Pete couldn't take it. Walked away. Bob grabbed him roughly, turned him around. Pete made a slight gesture that stopped Bob in his tracks. Looked in his wide eyes, watched the heaving muscles in his neck, and saw. This was why Bob hated secrets so. This was why Pete had to let him go. He was not fully trained, not yet ready for such depths. The things his friend knew would all come out in the poems. And they did. The grandmother he loved but found repellent. The books he read in her library. The letters she wrote to her first love there by the sea. Robert would take her by the hand? No. It was he who had no inkling. And his Danish lover, Emil, and Emil's father, and Johansen, the Norwegian sailor, and the seaman beneath the bridge. The bottom of the sea is cruel. Star-kissing star through wave on wave. What did Melville see in Ishmael and Queequeg? Had he followed Obed Marsh to the South Seas? After the rites in Mexico, Peggy knew his scaly body upon hers. And father's invention? Lifesavers. So the story came to Wanderlust. The uncle's suicide, the cousin's escape, over the stern of the Orizaba or off the Innsmouth pier. Pascal puts down the pen, seeing double. Our loves are palimpsests. The text is a marine romance. Below the story's wavy surface is a sunken city, the original home of all our losses and desires. What dwells there still? Be still a while and wait. Slowly the lost ones rise to the surface of the page. The monsters are transformed into beautiful boys and girls, only to become monsters again. We come from the sea, an ocean of words, and we return.
Thanks.